There. I want to welcome in our powerhouse panel on this Thursday morning. We've got commentary editor with the Washington Times, Kelly Sadler here, National Advisory Board member for Project 21, Christopher Arps back with us, senior contributor for the Federalist, Benjamin Weingarten is here, and former Trump campaign aide Rick Gates is here as well. This really has been, if you think about it for the medical community, Christopher, we'll start with you, but this year has really been something the last 15 months. Something happened at Joint Base Andrews a day ago with the vice president and her husband that I thought just summarized some of the confusion about mask wearing so succinctly. There's no sound to this video, but we're going to play it just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. I'll narrate this. So that is Kamala Harris and her husband there. They're both wearing masks. Ooh, a big not wet kiss because they're both clearly wearing masks right there. We'll play it one more time just so you can see it at home. If you missed it, it's very, very brief. You've got to see it though. So just before she goes up the stairs to get on Air Force Two, there's just a quick embrace. And look, I've almost had a drink of coffee with a mask on, but I thought, Chris, that's coronavirus right there in 2021.
They wear masks while they're kissing. They wear masks in rooms full of fully vaccinated people. They wear masks during Zoom meetings. This is just virtue signaling to the max. And I think that's a big reason why we've seen over the last couple of weeks a big drop-off in vaccinations. The administration is sending all kinds of mixed messages. You know, they said last week that you don't have to wear a mask while you're outside, but people are still doing it. We saw the very strange picture of the First Lady and the president meeting with former President Jimmy Carter and his wife. Of course, they didn't have masks on at that photo op, but when they walk out, they put them back on. So it's just extreme virtue signaling, Rob.
I was going to say, you sound like Dr. Seuss, but he's been canceled, so we can't talk about him anymore. Kelly Sadler, Washington Times, nice to have you back with us this morning. Isn't that just perfect, though, to see something like that? And then, you know, he brought up a good point. We talked about this yesterday on the show. You've got Jimmy Carter, 96 years old, with his wife, Rosalind Carter. All right, he was president. He got elected in 1976. No masks on because everybody's been vaccinated. That picture should be okay. But we're calling it out because he keeps telling us to wear masks. And now kids at summer camps are being told they've got to wear masks as well this summer.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's absurd. And this is an administration that ran on the fact that they were going to follow the science. Well, the science very clearly indicates that outside, there's non-transmission of COVID-19. So you can be maskless, but they continue to wear these masks outside, but then inside with the Carters, but then did it go outside? It's all very confusing. And the American people just need a very clear message. Once you're vaccinated, you can return to life as normal. We're at the point now where the unvaccinated people are taking the risk on themselves. The only reason we wore masks was to protect one another. Now everyone has the individual decision whether they want to get vaccinated or not vaccinated, and we should return life to normal. But the Democrats are using coronavirus. They're using it as a political weapon and tool to pass a really radical agenda. And once the crisis is over, they'll no longer have that excuse. So I believe it's very intentional what they're doing so that they can push through this, infrastructure bill, they can push through more relief, and they can make people more dependent on the government.
A couple quick things I want to get to. Andrew Cuomo, look, when I don't agree with him, I'll tell you. When I do agree with him, I'll tell you. Yesterday, he was talking about why Columbus Day will remain a holiday in the state of New York. Take a listen.
I support an indigenous people's holiday, but I also support Columbus Day. And you can have an indigenous people's day without intruding on Columbus Day. And that is the spirit of New York.
Rick Gates, quickly on this one. Look, that's a classic Democrat answer because he just said all of it. He said we can have Irish Americans Day, whatever. But he's very passionate about being an Italian American. I don't see there being a need to cancel Columbus Day. Bill de Blasio says that nope, we're now going to honor Juneteenth. That's fine. But also, Rick, why are we calling it Indigenous Peoples? Why can't we just call it Native American Day? Right?
I'm sure there's some legal definition probably that disallows us from calling it,
But that's what we're talking about, right? Native Americans, the people that were here pre-Columbus, they are Native Americans. Indigenous people are just people that are indigenous to whatever continent you're talking about, respectively. If you're talking about Australia, you're talking about Aborigines. You're talking about the continent that the USA, the lower 48, is in. All right, that would be Native Americans. Isn't that accurate? Am I crazy?
Yeah, look, I agree with you for agreeing with Cuomo on this one. Instead of detracting and taking away any type of named holiday, we should expand or we should be inclusive if that's what we're going to do. And the Democrats typically have not followed this approach. So I think this is a good thing that he is recognizing that Columbus Day is important to Italian Americans, which I find it ironic that New York was when people first started immigrating to America. So it's important to them.
I feel like I'm kissing with a mask on here. Like, I just don't understand the confusion about all this and why it has to be so darn complicated and woke and correct. Caitlyn Jenner is running for governor. We know that. She's a Republican in California. Charlie Crist, Democrat, is trying to become the governor again in the state of Florida. Let's start with Caitlyn Jenner. She was speaking last night about the upcoming recall election that will happen with Gavin Newsom in California. Take a listen.
I want to take that same fight, that same spirit, go to Sacramento, surround myself with some of the smartest people out there. I am an outsider. I understand that. Smartest people out there, because now I'm on a race for solutions. I need to find solutions to be able to turn this state around. I absolutely love this state. I'm a fighter, always have been. I come from a long line of fighters.
Benjamin Weingarten's with us from The Federalist. Benjamin, interesting, she does have some baggage as well. But, she was involved in an accident where somebody died in Malibu. Nobody talks about that. But in many ways, she reminds me of President Trump, just in the sense that she is going to carry that sort of America First spirit back to the Golden State, which really used to be one of the best states in the country.
Yeah, I think it's very telling. The recent census data came out, and California, I believe for the first time in its 170-year history, actually lost a seat in the House. And that's a consequence, and that's even with massive illegal immigrants that still live in California, and they're still counted in the census. And that's a reflection of the fact that the people are voting with their feet. They are rejecting the policy of progressivism and wokeism on steroids that have plagued that state and ruined, by the way, exceptional cities like the San Francisco that Gavin Newsom hailed from, which is now sort of embroiled with crime, drugs, squalor, and of course the most rampant and pervasive inequality for Democrats who claim to care so much about it that you'll see anywhere in the country. So I think that California is progressivism on steroids, and the Californization agenda for America is really what the Biden administration is representing. And look, anyone who comes at it and says, look, these are failed policies that have failed people and consequently are ruining an exceptional state should be lauded for it.
Chris, Joy Reid was talking about Caitlyn Jenner, and I just thought this was a bizarre take for somebody in cable news to have. She thinks that Caitlyn Jenner doesn't speak for the trans community. Take a listen.
Caitlyn Jenner, the Republican candidate for California governor who wants to lead that state, does not speak for the trans community. But she is a longtime Republican who is also a vehement Trump supporter. And we know the Republican MO all too well. We know that they don't actually care about fairness in girls' sports, just like they don't actually care about unborn fetuses, because if they did care, they would also care about kids locked in cages, and that America's babies need affordable health care, too.
It's a challenging show to watch, really challenging show to enjoy. If Caitlyn Jenner was a Democrat, Chris, do you think she'd be saying the same thing?
And she wouldn't. And I tell you what, Joy Reid would say the same thing to me as a African-American conservative, that I don't speak for black people because, I don't believe like she does and toe the line. I think it's going to be an uphill battle for any Republican to win statewide in California, Rob. But I think a transgender former gold medalist reality star would probably be a candidate that would have a chance in California.
Yeah, she doesn't speak for the trans community in an official capacity, but you're right. She won a gold in the Montreal 1976 Olympics as Bruce Jenner. And I think she's saying this because Caitlyn Jenner came out a couple days ago and said she does not support trans boys competing in girls' youth sports. Rick will give you the final thought, and then we'll see you guys in a little bit.
Yeah, I think Caitlyn Jenner is a very formidable candidate. They've done polling. She's polling very strongly there. And look, Joy Reid doesn't speak for transgenders either. And while she's entitled to her opinion, Caitlyn Jenner is an outsider, non-politician, and I think that's going to resonate with the California voters. And it's going to be interesting to see how she transforms that into a broad agenda. And I think that's going to be her test moving forward. What does she really stand for? What are her issues? And we'll watch for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love that this is heating up already. We're 19, 20 months away from the midterms, and we're already talking talking about governor's races and Senate races, and I love this is already happening. People are really passionate. I think it's going to make a difference when November 22 rolls around. Panel, we'll see you guys after the commercial break.